Hey everyone, it's Failed Shot back in the video, and today we're going to be going over the top 10 legendary ascension traits for you to use your legendary arcana on. They're a pretty rare resource. I figured I'd give you my advice since you all liked the epic trait list. But here is the top 10. Let's jump into it. Alright, so I actually don't have a lot of these legendary characters on my main account, so we'll have to go ahead and just look at it from there. Fortunately for us, we don't really care about their Ascension 1s or past their Ascension 2s when you're talking about legendary characters, because the legendary arcanas are so rare that you're going to want to make sure you prioritize specific characters and specific traits in order for you to get maximum value. Some of the damage dealers you'll want to get the Ascension 1, but pretty much every damage dealer is going to have that base attack on Ascension 1, so that's all you need to know. I've left the LD legendaries to the end because you cannot use the potions on them. But let's jump into the first one here, and that is Ganglo. Ganglo, this one should be no surprise. This is a number 1 to the number later on list, so this is the best trait in my opinion for PvE. It's obviously not a PvP character, but getting that extra 50% bonus damage from poisons is so massive. It unlocks so many comps. It basically makes Gemini Dragon possible. It is such a good trait. It is going to speed up all your runs in dungeons and make them all quite trivial. This is a no-brainer. If you have Ganglo, I pretty much drop the potions in him no matter what. It doesn't matter if you're early, late game, does not matter. I would definitely put the potions into him. Number 1 priority, pretty much always. Next one up is going to be, he's going to be in the Titan Icelands faction. He's going to be Brand. This is another one I do not have, and he is an absolute amazing character, albeit not as widely used as Ganglo, but he has broken into the Ash 14 scene. One of the most important characters if you want to have a less gear heavy team compared to some of the teams I've run in Ash 14. He does unlock some of those. He's a monster for Void Tower, makes everything just so much easier, and this trait is a big portion why. Now, it is something of note that the trait actually makes some of the Ash 14 comps a little bit harder to gear if you do have the trait upgrade because you want the shield to fall off. That being said, this trait is absolutely amazing. An extra 5% HP shield is huge for all portions of content that you're actually using him in. It is just such a big bonus to actually have. Generally, you're going to have anywhere from 22 to 30k HP on this guy, so anywhere from a 2.2k to 3k shield. This is huge when your damage dealers are running 10k HP. It's 20% shield on their max HP every single turn. It just refreshes. It's massive, super good trait, and definitely recommended for people who actually have them because it makes Void Tower honestly a lot more trivial and very easy. And that is one of the longest and most time-consuming game modes in the game, so I think it's very worth it to get that Ascension 2. Next up is going to be someone I actually have, and it is going to be, where is she? Chiara at the top here. Now, this character, her trait is quite excellent, to be honest. This trait, instead of getting 5% extra attack per stack of this Vengeful Spirit, you're going to get 8%, which is basically an additional 18% attack at max stacks, which is decent. Very solid. 18% attack is nothing to kind of laugh at. That's quite a lot of damage, especially when you have such a high base attack and you're running a lot of attack already. But I think that the most important thing here for Chiara is not actually her trait, but her Ascension 1. Now, I do think her Ascension 2 is worth putting potions into, but I think her Ascension 1 is absolutely worth putting a potion into, even if you can't get to the Ascension 2. Now, for Brand and Ganglo, I wouldn't put potions into them unless you could actually get to the Ascension 2. For Chiara, I would put a potion into so you can get to that Ascension 1 because base attack on damage dealers matters so much, and this is a huge Ascension. Just gives you more damage. Same with the Ascension 2, but you're honestly not going to have as much value out of this Ascension 2 than you will out of the Ascension 1. Next one is going to be Hydrasia, and this one actually might be a little bit of a surprise to a lot of people. I think her trait is actually one of the best legendary traits in the game, especially with her recent change. So what you're getting when you get to this Ascension 2 is instead of having a 40% chance plus 15 per hit to deal 80%, you're going to have a 40% chance plus 15 per hit to do 80% damage. So Instead of 50%, you're doing 80% damage, which is big, big numbers. When you're talking about Hydrasia here and you're building all this attack, it is huge. It's a big trait. And honestly, wherever you're going to be using her, you're going to be proccing that trait. Oftentimes, she's been using an Ash 14 in combination with Chiara or Mathesia in some teams, and it makes those teams much easier to build if you have that little bit of extra damage, because this trait is almost guaranteed to proc when you're hitting those imps, because you're going to be hitting generally at least 4 imps, if not more, and that allows the trait to be guaranteed to be procced. If you're using her in Void Tower, if you're using her in Arena, if you're using her in Campaign, this trait is excellent. And honestly, when you get to this point, there's not actually too many legendary traits that I would recommend people spend on. So I think that this trait is worth it, and especially this base attack. Same thing with Hydrasia as Chiara. Her Ascension 1 is actually more important than her Ascension 2 in my opinion. That base attack is huge and very, very important for any damage dealer. Next up is going to be the first Ascension 5 character, and that is going to be Guerrelle. And as I mentioned, I don't think that Guerrelle is super, super widely used, but I do think that his trait is quite excellent. Now, before we talk about the Ascension 5, I do want to talk about the Ascension 1. His base attack is hugely, hugely important, just like Hydrasia, just like Chiara, and it's only Ascension 1. It's not a huge investment. I've considered putting a potion into him myself, but his Ascension 5 is actually one of the best Ascension traits for legendary characters, but it is Ascension 5, so I do not recommend that you put a ton of potions into it. I don't recommend you put 5 potions into him. That is a lot, and you can get multiple other Ascension traits for getting Guerrelle's Ascension trait. But if you are a really love Arena, and you go hard in Arena, or you really love using Guerrelle, this trait is absolutely amazing. I found that I have been completely stumped by some Guerrelle defensive teams because I like to use Urzak, and getting counterattacked, and then maybe curse proccing a couple times, and then finally getting another counterattack, turning into the max rage, and getting the bonus turn, and then one-shotting my Urzak or my Mathesia is huge, huge value out of this Ascension trait, and it completely changes the landscape of Arena for me. Now, the next one on our list is going to be Mathesia, and we have her right here. Now, Mathesia is one I actually wouldn't mind putting one potion into as well, because her heals are based on max HP, so the base HP is actually huge on Mathesia, but I don't think it's as useful as getting that attack on some of the damage dealers. Now, her Ascension 2 trait is quite good as well. You're getting, instead of getting that 5% heal on max HP, if they have a positive effect, you're getting 10%. So what this does is it doubles the trait. And what this means is when your characters use an ability, if they have a buff on them, even after the fact, let's just assume you're using, I don't know, Mathesia, and you're basic attacking, she puts the shield as she attacks. She actually heals from that hit. It's a little weird, but it's very, very good, especially with the recent changes to Hakron, where his max HP actually counts as a buff. So oftentimes you're pairing them together and your whole team will just be healing for 5, if you have the trait, 10% of their max HP every single time they use an ability, which is absolutely crazy. It just continuously keeps your whole team alive much, much longer, and just is an amazing, amazing legendary trait. Next up is going to be someone, again, that I do not have, and that is going to be Evra here in the Free Cities faction. Now, her trait is a little situational, because when you're upgrading her trait, you're going to get that 50% chance to land defense down on the extra AoE hit that she gets when she stacks that 4 rage. This trait does come in handy when you're using her in Queen, when you're using her in Void Tower, when you're using her in Campaign, in Arena. It does have some incidental value, which I think is worth getting that Ascension 2. But again, with Mathesia, or with Evra here, you're going to get that base attack on Ascension 1. So I'd absolutely use a potion just to get to her Ascension 1 if you don't even have the potions to get to her Ascension 2. This is where the puddle kind of, or the lake kind of runs dry, because there's not a crazy amount of Ascension characters that I'd actually recommend, or Ascension traits that I'd actually recommend for a lot of people as general utility. Not to mention there's not a lot of legendaries in the game, but Ascension 2 for Mathesia or Evra is excellent. So definitely keep that one in mind. Now, I want to mention a couple of other characters before I go ahead and enter the LB characters. Now, first off, Cyrus has an amazing Ascension 1 and Ascension 2 trait, but she is fusible, and so I kind of decided to leave her off the list of what I'd recommend spending your potions onto, because you're going to be fusing her. So she has an excellent trait though, and I highly recommend that you get to that Ascension 2 if you're using her. Also, there's a few others like Valeria, for example, that I'd recommend getting to Ascension 1 and using a potion for that, but not Ascension 2 because her trait is pretty poor. But definitely get that Ascension 1 for that base attack. But I'm going to go ahead and talk about the LD legendaries here, because LD legendaries actually have some massive bonuses, but you can't use potions onto them. So I'll go ahead and talk about the first one here, and that is Corrupt Aurak. His Ascension trait is huge. You get, instead of 5% AoE true damage from this trait, you're going to get 10% AoE true damage from this trait, which is massive. Every single time the round starts, it is just continuously chunking you. When this guy has, you know, perhaps 30, 32, 35k HP, you're going to be getting hit for 7k true damage every single round. That is huge damage on an AoE for the fact that he's a full tank unit. Next up is going to be someone that I actually have, and that is going to be Evelyne First Dawn. Now, Evelyne First Dawn doesn't really have too many uses, but if you unlock this Ascension 2 trait, it is actually kind of breaks into some areas that otherwise she wouldn't be able to use Evelyne First Dawn. Getting that extra 20% attack up is actually big, because it stacks with Brand's 50% attack up, or even a Connor or a Windstreck's 30% attack up. So using her in Arena, for example, with Urzag, this attack up would mean a huge amount for my squad. And this just kind of changes a lot of things, because her defense up is already super good in going for a turn 2 defensive or offensive comp, because you get that defense up before anyone can even move, which is actually a big bonus. So definitely an excellent trait here with Evelyne, but you're only getting the attack up with the Ascension 2 trait. And then we have the last one on this list, and that is going to be someone, again, that I do not have, but I really want. He is my most wanted character, I think, in the game right now, and that is Urian. So Urian has his trait, which basically gives you elemental advantage once per round when you're hitting, but his trait gives it so he actually has elemental advantage on defense when you're getting attacked once per round as well, which basically means that he has higher chance to deflect, he has a higher chance of staying alive, makes it so he's much more dungeon viable, and all that good stuff. So definitely an excellent trait here with Urian if you happen to get it. So that is going to be the top, I guess, 11 list here. A couple of other honorable mentions that I added in there at the end there. It's actually unfortunate because there's not too many Ascension traits that I would actually go for in general. For example, if you look at my account here, I am honestly considering Hydrasia or Mathesia, even though they're a little bit lower on my list. I don't really have any other characters I'd want to invest in. Guerrelle for the Ascension 1 perhaps, but I don't want to go all the way to Ascension 5. That's a lot of potions. So honestly, I just tend to save because I'm waiting for one of those big heavy hitters like Ganglo, like Brand. I've already put 2 potions into Chiara, so I did do that, but I'm waiting for one of those big heavy hitters that I want to invest all my potions into. And honestly, once you get all these characters ascensioned out, you kind of have a little bit of free will in where you want to use them, because there's not too many legendaries you actually want to potion out. So that'll be at this list, and hopefully this gives you some guidance on how to use your legendary arcanas and where I think the traits are super valuable and where I don't think they're very valuable. But that'll be it for this video. If you did enjoy, be sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you for the next one.